Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 155 of the It's a Pictures podcast. My name is John Gilpatrick, and joining me, as always, is
the co-host with the mostest, Max Colville.
How are you doing today, Max?
Good. We're pretty much wrapping up summer in this podcast. We all the big movies that come out. Sorry, Gran Turismo. I'm excited to talk about the box office results, talk about some of the biggest movies of the summer with Barbie and Oppenheimer with you, and talk about a lot of different things.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to really kind of come up with another topic for conversation these days. And it's definitely pervaded my, outside of my film cinephile kind of community of people that I, am friendly with. Everybody seems to be talking about these movies right now. So we're going to do it some more. You haven't gotten enough of that. Well, sorry. But yeah, it is our first episode in August here, 2023. And I don't know. I was looking at so we went to see, both my wife and I went to see Barbie, first Oppenheimer, and then a week later Barbie. And she told me the other day, she's like, oh, it's been so fun, going to the movies lately. We should go more often. What else is coming out this weekend? And I'm like, Meg to the Trench?
You're like, we can go see Indiana Jones or Mission Impossible that we missed.
They're all gone. They're all gone.
What? No.
Well, she'd probably see Indiana Jones, but that really is not playing much anymore. Yeah. And Mission Impossible, I don't think that if it was 2 hours, she'd see it, but 3 is a tough sell. We'll figure something out. I thought that Randall Park movie was going to be playing, but that's only a limited release, so that's a no. Nevertheless, we'll figure something out.
And John, when you were off last time, I had our good friend Charlie Nash on.
Yeah, awesome.
And we talked about the directors of Oppenheimer and Barbie, Greta Gerwig and Christopher Nolan.
Two good ones.
Yeah, they're all their films and what we like and don't like. And we talked about the beginning of the SAG-AFTRA strike, which is still ongoing, and the Writers Guild of America strike, which is still ongoing. And that's been making
they both are. They both are, that's for sure. They are ongoing. There is no end in sight. I don't know. It feels like just an absolutely monumental month, that I feel like we're going to remember for a long time in sort of pop culture history, between these two things, Barbenheimer and the strikes, and they just both feel like game changers.
Yeah, so definitely diametrically opposed to each other.
Yeah, right. But it's just but they still intersect in really interesting ways of these two movies were super duper successful, and you didn't get a full kind of press tour in the leading right up to their release that you normally do. So what is that going to tell the studios? And obviously, we know there's 8 zillion toy movies kind of in the offing, and it's that's what they're taking away from this, is we want more toys. And I saw a thing that was they're trying to create a kind of juxtaposed double feature-y meme with the new Saw movie coming out and the Paw Patrol movie. So I'm just okay, yeah, this is all the bad stuff, but there's something that's actually important that's going to come out of both of these. I feel so we'll see what those end up being.
I mean, I saw some acquaintances online, since they announced the date of the Jonathan Glazer Holocaust drama Zone of Interest is December 8th. That matches up with the new Yorgos Lanthimos Poor Things movie. So they're let's do a double feature of those. I'm I don't think that's how it works.
That's 6 people are gonna do that. Yeah, I'm not sure, but whatever. We're gonna try out this double feature thing and see what.
Maybe if you're listening to this podcast, you're the type of person who would do that double feature.
Yeah, one of the people hosting this podcast is not interested in that double feature. So we'll see. But yeah, we'll get more into Barbie and Oppenheimer in a bit. We're gonna keep it kind of open ended, I think, on this episode to an extent, because there's not a ton happening besides this. So we'll just talk about both these movies and other interesting topics surrounding them, maybe kind of wrap up the summer a little bit here, since, as Mash mentioned, like maybe this is offline, but Gran Turismo and whatever that Dracula on a boat movie is, and all this other like
The new
random shit.
Turtles movie, I
Yeah, that's
think, is
coming out in August is not going to be like leaving quite the dent that Barbie or Oppenheimer did. Um, so we'll just kind of take it from there. But before all that, you shared an interesting article which was about like film criticism, which um, is very curious. There's a lot happening, I feel like, in this space that doesn't get the same attention for, obvious reasons as the actors and the writers. But like, should there be a film critic union, and like, would they be going on strike too for what was shared in this article in The
well,
Guardian?
it's not only that, John, but it's also that a lot of people who might think of themselves as critics or like wonder whether or not they're influencers in some way. And there's been like a whole list of things that like SAG-AFTRA is like they don't want influencers to kind of promote striked works and stuff like that. And
Right.
it's like, but like normal critics aren't influencers, or are they? It's like very, because obviously the job of a critic is to not only critique a work but also to inform the public on whether or not they should seek out a piece of art and opinions on it, right? You do influence people in some fashion, but I think there's ultimately a difference between film criticism and an influencer.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. Not the least of which is that influencers tend to get paid for the marketing they do.
Right.
And I when I saw this, I was thinking a lot about like the A.O. Scott thing, which happened earlier this year, where he was the longtime film critic for the New York Times and decided he wanted to step away from that. And the reason he gave is just basically like, I don't really know what I'm doing anymore. Like, I can write a great review of this movie and like nobody sees it, and I can write a mediocre review about a movie and everybody goes to see it. It's like, movies don't really need criticism in the same way, or the public just doesn't care. And I'd like to be devoting my time to other things. I hope I didn't do that too crudely, but I feel like it was a sentiment of what he had said. This just feels like kind of another entry in that saga, right?
Yeah, I mean, like the article goes on to say, like a lot of these studios are paying for these upfront screenings, and like if you would like to leave a positive social media review, you can go ahead and do that early. Otherwise, don't say anything. Like if it's negative, so it's very much like controlling the narrative of whatever features coming out. And let's face it, they've always done that to some extent, because that's what embargoes do. They control the narrative of their movies, of their product. But they execute even more control these days.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess it's because they can. I keep coming back to that. It's just like there's not really the same power in what a critic says that there used to be, even as a collective. And I feel like that to an extent, like, it's hard to know which came first, but like, I feel like film criticism is like, has become very kind of like singular minded. And it's like a lot of these movies that are coming out, everybody, all the critics love, or the critics just don't love at all. And you can say, well, it's like it's hive-minded because these people that are going into it are kind of have a similar ideology, and maybe that's true. But I think at the same time, it's also like, well, look at just the output and the movies that are coming out, and it's like everything is either some kind of like generic IP branding opportunity, superheroes, etc., or something that's just like more challenging and arts-driven, and like everybody's celebrating those because that's the stuff we want. We want more of it, and we want stuff that's like not even always successful all the time, but just like doesn't feel like so cookie cutter. I do feel like that there's like something about critics just not having like a ton of different things to say, that probably isn't helping their case. But I don't know that, like, I just think the influencer thing is just totally different. Like, I don't know that they're getting replaced, even if their like seats and screenings are getting replaced. Like, so it is. It's just like, I think that they're finding that this is just a good way to market stuff for the same reason that, other companies are giving products to influencers to market. It's just cheap. It's just easy.
Yeah, easy money.
And the influencers are like, fuck, I'll do whatever.
Yeah,
That's
as
the gig.
yeah, as opposed to the critics who are like,
Yeah, it's like, no, that's not really what my job is, or it's not really ethical.
right.
So, yeah, just another one of those things that like kind of blows about what's happening right now. But like, I guess there just needs to be some kind of like paradigm shift for them to find, like, I guess, more of a voice actively in what's happening, instead of being kind of, I'm not saying this to be critical, poor choice of word, but just like they need to, like, critics need more of a platform. I just don't know how you do that, because it's been diminished. I don't think there's any denying that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I guess, like, in some way, there's still a necessity for critiques and just overall thoughts on film coming together. I mean, obviously, these studios still use Rotten Tomatoes scores as a barometer, or Metacritic scores, or what have you, and they think that kind of influences their box office to some extent. I mean, for a time, that was even scary, because these movies seemed to be like review proof, right? Like if it, like even if it, like, most critics hated it, it didn't matter. I mean, I guess you could look at Super Mario, right? That would say, like, that's a pretty poorly reviewed movie,
right?
But
that's sort of what I think I was mentioning with the A.O. Scott thing. Is like, he's just like, yeah, like, it doesn't matter what I write. People want to see something or they don't. And it's based more around the branding and the marketing and whatever else, instead of, my thoughts, or, it's sort of how interesting it is.
Yeah. And certainly some of that can be seen in what the summer box office ended up being, John.
Yeah. I mean, that's something else that I just feel like is really interesting right now. So we did our game and we tried to predict which movies were going to make the most money. We did like a okay job. I don't know. Like, how would you grade us overall? Like, got most of the titles, but the order is definitely jacked up.
Yeah, and we missed one of the biggest underdog stories of the summer, which was Sound of Freedom, right?
yeah, that was weird.
That movie is probably outgrossing what, like Indiana Jones or Mission Impossible. It's just bananas.
Yeah, no, it's really wild. So I won the contest pretty definitively, barring, I don't know, the Flash having a resurgence. He goes back in time and makes people like the movie, and then makes a ton of money.
No, it was too bad, John. Like, it was like, you got a lot of movies that did okay, and even like your, like, let's say your bomb Elemental still had good legs, and it ended up legging out the Flash. So for a while, it was like the Flash was gonna, like, at least surpass that, right?
Yeah.
Elemental is still playing in theaters, getting tickets, while the Flash is on digital, kind of like a forgotten mess of a project that it is.
Yeah, well, they were doing the thing. What was the thing they were doing for? Oh, they were doing buy one get one tickets.
Yeah, like second weekend.
Oh, it was wild. But yeah, I mean, Warner Brothers had a mixed summer, but they're going to be happy, I'm sure, with Barbie making up for the Flash, which I think they said was like one of the biggest bombs in history.
Yeah. Not helping matters much was Indiana Jones, which cost an awful lot of money and didn't show good returns at the box office.
No, it really didn't. Maybe that was a case where reviews really didn't help.
Yeah, right.
Shooting everything I said earlier, but it strikes me as maybe that would have done a little bit better if, like, the movie was better. I mean, I haven't seen it, so I don't want to criticize too much, but nobody seemed to really have anything great to say about it. And I figured that there'd be enough nostalgia and like off the heels of Top Gun last year, which did so well after like such a long break, that people would be into that sort of thing, but nobody was. It just didn't pan out. And I think that largely it was just people kind of being on the fence about whether they needed to see it or not, and kind of feeling like there was just no real positive buzz around it. So I mean, that was kind of too bad, but also, it was toward the back end of our picks. I mean, Oppenheimer was the last. Was that the last movie picked? Or second to last?
Yeah, Oppenheimer and Elemental, I think, were the last ones
Yeah.
picked.
So that was like a value pick, you could definitely say. Spider-Man was definitely a value pick for me. Got that in the second to last round, so it was my fourth movie, I believe. So that one did really well. And then Barbie is going to end up being, I would assume it's going to end up being the biggest movie of the year. In general. Like, I don't think there's anything coming out this fall that's going to beat it, and I'm assuming it's going to surpass Mario pretty handily with nothing kind of to topple it.
Yeah, that's a competition. I mean, there's some stuff like that might have been in the pipeline that maybe like would have done well, but even with the strike, we don't know if those movies are even coming out now or being pushed.
That's true.
So we'll see. I mean, like, it's tough to imagine anything rivaling Barbie and what it's accomplished at the box office. It's certainly monumental feat. And when we were talking about the movie, we didn't know what the comps were for, and that's because there are no comps for Barbie. It crushed everything. And,
yeah. It's I mean, it's good. It's probably overtaking Guardians of the Galaxy like as we speak, and Spider-Man within a few days. So that'll make it the biggest movie this summer to date, and then it's just kind of like how well does it hold up weekend over weekend through August. Mission Impossible, probably should talk about here, was one of the top movies picked, and has definitely like disappointed at the box office, at least, even though it had excellent reviews. It just seems like it got squeezed coming out just a weekend before this big double feature. So like, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, definitely, like, Paramount messed that one up. They lost all the premium format screens to Oppenheimer because, like,
Right.
I guess they were like, oh, true IMAX, make a deal with Christopher Nolan, 3 weeks exclusive. For IMAX, it's been a really good deal. Like, my IMAX theater is one of the 30 true IMAX theaters in the world, I guess. And like, you can't get a ticket for any of the show times. It's like, it's sold out nonstop. I saw it once in the format. I'm going to see it one more time, I think next Tuesday, just to see it again, because it's a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that certainly hurt Mission Impossible, helped Oppenheimer. I don't really know. I mean, like, I guess Mission Impossible tracked as well as the franchise typically tracks. It did no better than Fallout, despite having pretty similar reviews, right? It still had really high reviews, and
Fallout did better than this, though, didn't it?
What, box office wise?
Yeah,
maybe internationally. I don't.
Yeah, I thought it did. I'll look it up real quick.
Yeah, but like, the movie's good. John, what if I told you that I've seen 8 of the 10 movies here on of this list?
That's pretty good. That's like a pretty busy summer. I've seen 2. We're going to talk about both of them.
Guardians of the Galaxy is on Disney Plus as of today. So
yeah, I'm fine. To date, as of our, go ahead.
No, let's talk about my second pick was Little Mermaid, and we thought it was a reach at the time, but it seemed to be like one of the stronger bets of the summer. It held up pretty well, and
yeah, it did pretty well. I mean,
did what we needed it to do in that position.
It's the 4th best movie on the list here, I think, right? And it was the 4th movie pick, so you kind of slotted it exactly right. or third, was it third movie picked or
Third
fourth?
movie picked, I
Third,
think.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, pretty much right in line with where it should have been picked. So that was a good job by you. I underestimated that. I thought that was a little bit of a reach at the time. But yeah, it was fine. I mean, I
There
didn't
was
see
another
it. I have
lesson
no
that
interest in it. Yeah.
there's another lesson that I learned, John.
Uh,
That like when Fandango does its list of most anticipated movies of the year, and
yeah.
number one is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, you listen to what Fandango says is the most anticipated of the year, and you pick that movie.
Yeah, well, I did exactly that. I read that list like thoroughly, memorized it, and that's how I made my selection.
It was like the Spider-Man movie did like 3 times as well as the original animated Spider-Man movie.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I certainly did not think it was going to do this well, but it ended up kind of coming out at a time when there was nothing else that people were interested in theaters. Like a lot of the big May movies had kind of fizzled out by then, and I think and most of them were like not well reviewed or
yeah,
kind of like
because Fast
just
X was a big miss on this
yeah, that
list,
was a
right?
big miss, right? Just most of those movies like people were like kind of shruggy about. I feel like there was not a ton of buzz. And then this one came out and it had amazing reviews and people could take their kids and that just it was just something that everybody like I guess felt like they needed to catch up on. It was sort of like one of those finally moments, like every summer seems to have that where it's just like, okay, finally something I can go to the movies to see that looks fun and a little bit different. The best movies this summer were ones that were just a little bit, I mean, not like dramatically different, but just a little bit different than the same old shit that we've been getting for years and years and years. And I know
Dude,
this is a sequel, but it's just, it still felt fresh. Like there's still not like a ton of movies like doing that type of thing. Now we're getting one this weekend. So it's like,
yeah.
everybody's going to be doing their franchise now. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get a DC version of some kind of animated series that's like this and whatnot. But like for now, this is fresh, and Barbie is fresh, and Oppenheimer is fresh, and eventually we're going to get 8 toy movies and 8 really really
do,
hyper stylized animated movies and 8 3-hour biopics a year, and we're all going to be sick of it. But
do you have that comp for Mission Impossible?
yeah, so Fallout was the best. It did 220 domestic. Mission Impossible 2 did 215 domestic. So that one will be by far the best when you adjust for inflation. And this one is ahead of, I mean, to date, like it'll make more money. I don't know how high it'll go, but the only one that it's ahead of is Mission Impossible 3, which is the lowest grossing of the series at 134.
Oof. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
rough. I mean, like, yeah, sure. I mean, I think Tom Cruise has that like minimum 90 days playing in theaters or something in his contract, and like before it goes on digital or something, so that will drive more people to see it in theaters than maybe would have, and it's not gonna make too much more.
It's not great, that's for sure.
Good thing Dead Reckoning 2 is already in the can.
Well, that's the thing that's just really tough, is that like it sucks that like the first kind of flop the franchise has had in years is Upper One. So that's not great, but apparently the movie's like I haven't seen it. You said it was good, so it's like you weren't super high on it. Maybe it had a lot of like yeah, it's good, but it's just not like scratching the itch that previous movies had or other movies that came out this summer have had. So
no, it's probably like my third or fourth favorite Mission Impossible.
Yeah, fair enough. I'd still like to see it.
Yeah, it has some great action sequences. Tom Cruise is great. Typical Mission Impossible movie.
Scratches the itch.
So John, we briefly talked about Sound of Freedom, which sounded like the conservative QAnon movie of the summer, right? Like it was a movie that my father asked me about, and he said it was the #1 movie in America, and had I seen it?
Oh no!
And I was like, Dad, I've never heard of this movie. And he's like, I haven't been in movies a long time. I'd really like to see it. And he's not going to go. He's not a movie guy.
Yeah.
It was just like wild, and I guess it had an effect. The movie did pretty well at the box office.
It did do well. Now, like, it's been like pretty well established at this point that like some people, I don't know who, if it's the studio or if it's like rich conservative people or what, but they're like basically buying out theaters to boost the box office totals. And sometimes they'll give, I think, the tickets away to people, and sometimes like there have been a lot of people who are like, yeah, nobody's in here, and it said it sold out. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, like a pay it forward type scheme. Like,
I guess but so it's just like, I think that it's like, for them, it's like, well, it's nice to have the headlines and the attention where people are like, hey, what's this movie? Like, people are seeing it, blah blah blah. And they have, I guess more than enough money to burn. But it is weird. I was in line for Barbie the other day, and like the line was out the door, and I figured eventually that like they were having some sort of issue with this ticket scanner, because I couldn't figure it out. I was like, holy shit! Like it was a Thursday night, and this is the line to go see Barbie. And I was like, do you have your the woman in front of me, I was like, do you have your tickets already? Are you buying tickets? And she's like, oh, we have our tickets. This is crazy. I can't believe so many people are here. I'm like, me too. And I was like, she asked me what I was seeing, and we said Barbie, and she said, oh, we're here to see Sound of Freedom. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize that there was real people doing that, because in my head, it was just all these like kind of, just empty theaters. But yeah, some people saw it. I guess they're into it, whatever. Not something that
so John,
anybody was going to put on their roster for our contest, though.
No. So John, just for fun, which of the two movies do you think that I skipped on our list?
So I'm assuming you have not seen. If I had to guess, I would say I have a couple. I know you. I'm assuming you saw Guardians. I know you saw Mission Impossible. I know you saw Little Mermaid. I know you saw Barbie. I'm sure you saw Spider-Man and Indiana Jones. And I know you saw Oppenheimer. So I'm between Fast X, Flash, and Elemental. I'm going to guess that you skipped Flash and Fast X.
I've seen The Flash, and I skipped Fast and Elemental.
Okay, I thought maybe you would have taken your daughter to see Elemental.
No, not yet. But there was a drive-in. We have one drive-in Rhode Island, and it was showing a double feature of The Flash and Transformers. And I was like, those are two movies I don't really need to listen to.
Well,
I could just like go and eat popcorn and like sit in my car and watch them.
That sounds rough.
So we did that. So I saw The Flash, and then like Transformers was late, and like we fell asleep during it, and I was just like, it was still playing, and we're like, let's just go home.
Yeah, that just sounds like not a fun time.
We're like, we don't need to see Transformers.
No,
we know what's gonna happen here.
Definitely not. Oh man. So yeah, I don't know, I guess that's the summer box office. Like it was interesting.
What did we learn?
That people love movies about toys and nuclear weapons.
And still comic books. Comic books are still here to stay.
They're okay. They're showing signs of wear and tear.
How about Disney's Snow White with the girl from West Side Story coming next year? Is that in trouble?
I don't know. I have no idea. I can't even, like, with those, I don't know even what to say about them.
Shannon loved Little Mermaid.
That's good. Yeah. I was like laughing about it, like, oh, like, God, like, these are so stupid. And Kim was like, oh, I want to see it. I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing. They have an audience, and apparently I read, like, they try to make them so close because I guess, like,
somebody's going to, like, realize that they're pieces of shit.
Well, not only that, but like kids like repetition. So like
Jesus.
When the kids actually see the movie, they're like, if something's wrong or changed, they'll be like, this isn't my movie, and they'd be upset.
Oh my God, it's just torture. It's just torture. I have nothing else to say about any of these movies. I just don't get it. I don't get why anybody wants to be involved in any of them besides, I guess, money rules. So that's cool. It's all right. I like it too, but it's just damn, I'm not going to spend it going to see a piece of shit that I don't want to see. Snow White. I like what about the Huntsman? Come on. Let's bring that whole thing back. We already did like 18 live action Snow Whites.
Yeah, but that wasn't Disney. This is Disney's chance.
Oh, Disney needs to do it. Well, good for Disney.
Yeah.
Yay. Let's talk about some movies that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that I liked both of them, which are Barbie and Oppenheimer.
John, you went to the movies.
I know. It was the first time I saw Oppenheimer first, and I think it was the first time I've been to the movies since Megan.
Yes, that's what I thought it was going to be. I was like, oh, John will go to the movies to see, he'll do his job, he'll go see Indiana Jones, we'll talk about it, we'll be able to wrap up Indiana Jones and be good. And then you weren't on, and I was like, And now we're here, and I find out that not only did you go to the movies once, but you went twice.
I did. How about that? I had to see him. Everybody was so excited.
I'm shocked. I didn't know what movies would bring you back. I'm glad to hear the spoiler that you enjoyed both of them, though.
I did. I really enjoyed both of them quite a bit. So I was on vacation. We went to see my in-laws in Michigan, and they really like going to the movies. I figured we'd probably go see something, and we were going to go see Mission Impossible, but the days kind of went on, and then it got to be Friday, and I was like, well, let's go see Oppenheimer instead. So we saw Oppenheimer with her family, and then after we got back the following week, we saw Barbie, just Caitlin and I, and I enjoyed both. I mean, I guess we could start with Oppenheimer, but I was
let's just do an overall thing here, John. So, okay. So you're saying you saw it with your family. I saw it at like a packed Friday morning 10 a.m. screening at the IMAX 70 millimeter. Like I was shocked that it was almost a full theater at 10 a.m.
Yeah, I just saw it was just a regular theater for me. I didn't see it in a like premium format.
And it was pretty packed. I have learned, John, that the Coolidge Corner Theater, where our friend Charlie Nash works, they had record ticket sales.
Wow, that's awesome.
Barbenheimer opening weekend.
That's cool.
And I'm just like, I'm so sorry, Charlie. It must have been crazy.
Yeah, but that's good also, though.
Yeah, sure. Good for the Coolidge Corner Theater, nice independent theater. But the fever was high. I saw some Barbenheimer t-shirts at my Friday, the July 21st screening.
I didn't see much Barbenheimer. I just saw lots of pink.
Okay.
Yeah.
I ended up wearing. I saw Oppenheimer on Friday, and then I went with Shannon to see Barbie the next day on Saturday, and Shannon and I both had pink outfits on and to see Barbie.
I did not wear anything special to either movie, but I did enjoy them.
No, you didn't cosplay?
No.
Okay, so let's separate the movies out as best we can, and we'll start with Oppenheimer. And I'm glad what it seems to hear that your Christopher Nolan cold streak is over.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. So like I have always been a huge Christopher Nolan fan. I was not a fan, like unexpectedly not a fan of Dunkirk. I remember going into that and just being like just so hyped. And I was just like, dang, like I really just did not like that movie. I don't really understand why. I haven't revisited it. I've always wanted to, but I just never have. And I just kind of felt like I don't know what it's going to do. Like I'm prepared to be like totally blown away and be like, how did I miss this? I'm also prepared to be like, yeah, this sucks. This is so boring. So I don't know. I haven't been in the right like mood to be like, all right, let's freaking do this thing. Dunkirk. Let's try this again. But so I've only seen the one time, but I was like majorly let down and like shocked that it happened that way. So that was Dunkirk, and then Tenet, which was just so weird because it was like the first movie of the pandemic era. It came out in like 2020, like for the fall, right?
Yeah, like he made it play in theaters, even though people weren't really ready to go to theaters. Like they were hoping like that movie would bring people back.
Yeah, it did.
I remember I saw it at the drive-in.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm not going in a theater.
Yeah, I saw it when it was playing on whatever Max or whatever streaming thing that it was on.
Yeah.
eventually. But that movie I just think is a total mess. And I did not enjoy it. I did revisit that one, and I did not enjoy it the second time. So that one just to me is like a miss. And like, okay, people are allowed to have misses, but to me, I was kind of like, all right, going back even further, Dark Knight Rises, not that great of a movie. Interstellar, phenomenal, best Christopher Nolan, no notes, 10 out of 10. And then Dunkirk, Tenet, I'm like, this is like I'm starting to get a little nervous for my guy here. Um, so Oppenheimer, like, saw the previews for it last fall, and I'm just like, okay, this looks pretty cool. Um, just like a interesting story. I was kind of like, okay, like we're doing like a historical biopic. I'm not really sure that seems like his kind of like what I'm looking for out of a movie of his, but like I'm willing to go there. And just
Well,
like,
John, let's also not forget that Universal spent like $100 million to like obtain this film,
yeah,
and like
the other thing is like I should say is that like I was starting to get like big time Oppenheimer fatigue. Like I didn't have Barbie marketing fatigue, but I had Oppenheimer fatigue in that like I was getting annoyed with like all of the like stories about it, where it was just like it was the same thing as like what was that movie that Leonardo DiCaprio did where he got his Oscar?
Revenant.
Yeah, it was like he ate like deer antlers to like get in the part. I'm just like, okay, who fucking cares? And this was the same thing. It was like he had like a bomb that was bigger than anything besides the nuclear bomb, and like nobody ever saw anything like they did when they did X, Y, and Z. That stuff just like annoys me. So I was kind of like, all right, like let's just get on with the show here. And about like 30 seconds in, I'm just like, oh, this movie fucking rules already. So I was really just into it
Yeah, that was
instantly.
it for you. Yeah, was it? Was it for you? 30 seconds.
Yeah, no, I was like, I was hooked. Like, I was just like, oh, this is gonna be freaking awesome. Like the first 10 minutes is like very Malicky. So much like kind of just random like shots of like what is supposed to be visualization of quantum physics. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. I love it.
It's funny that you mentioned that because, like, I think a reviewer for IGN mentioned Tree of Life and like how like this is like
Yeah.
Nolan's like Tree of Death or something like
Yeah, I
that.
could see that. I mean, that happens throughout, but like the beginning, it's just so pronounced, and the score is going, and you're just like cross cutting between his face and these random like images, and trying to tell story just so fast, and I just thought that was all really cool. And then kind of it starts to settle in a little bit, and just everything was great. Like all the detail was great, all the actors were great. I loved the script was phenomenal, and the editing and the way that they just like I mean, there's so much to digest of like the period and the different characters and everything, but they do such a great job of like just kind of introducing a piece of information, kind of teasing it, and that when it comes, you're like, oh, that's what they were talking about, and that like carries the whole thing throughout, which I thought was just really, really smartly done. And you can lean on the testimony and kind of the future timeline to help do some of that. I just thought like it was everything that every kind of trick he had in his arsenal he used to great effect here, and I didn't really have like anything to complain about besides maybe you want to give it a little bit of a knock for the length. Like it was really long. I didn't mind it, but what I said, no spoilers, but there is a moment where they actually test an atomic bomb. So that's sort of something that happens in the movie.
Hashtags no spoilers for
Sorry,
history.
yeah, I just felt like it was important to mention. I do kind of wish that like because that's such a climax that like it happens like maybe a half hour later than it actually does, because then you can kind of like get into the rest of the story and like some of the politics and everything, but like you've had a more traditional arc of like climax and then like a quick fall down to the end. Instead, like you still have so much more to go by the time you get to the bomb tests, and I felt like it lost a little bit of steam. But overall, like it was a pretty minor nitpick, um, and I think that like the movie as it is right now still totally works.
Are you passing to me now?
Yeah, I
Okay.
rambled enough.
Okay, so I'm just gonna elaborate on a lot of the things that you started with. Yeah, when I saw it in IMAX, I guess like black and white IMAX film had to be made, and that was like the new thing for new experiment that Nolan was doing on this one, and that was pretty cool. There's been a lot of criticism about the women in this film, not unlike any other Christopher Nolan movie. They still don't fare all that well here. Florence Pugh, in particular, is spending most of her time on screen naked. Um, uh, and I don't know. Emily Blunt is great, with what she's given. I like that. As you mentioned, the movie like really leads up to the Trinity test, and there's been a lot of conversation about not showing the actual impact of the bomb on the Japanese, or showing Ground Zero there in Japan, and exactly what decision was made with that. I tend to think like that the movie works okay without going into too much detail there. I mean, there's the scene later in the movie where Oppenheimer is kind of reflecting on like a celebration after the bomb has gone off, and it's just such a poignant scene, and I think like that does a really good job, and it's like diametrically opposed to what happens with the sound in the Trinity test, because like there's something really interesting that they decided to do with the sound, and it's realistic, where they drop the bomb and it's like almost minutes before you actually get the ramifications of of that explosion, right? Like you would assume, and that same effect is used later in the movie as Oppenheimer's kind of like dealing with the trauma of knowing that he's kind of responsible in some fashion for this massive amounts of casualties.
Yeah,
I know that a lot of people were happy to see Robert Downey Jr. so prominently in another role.
yeah.
He's been in a lot of other movies, the Sherlock Holmes movies, I guess The Judge, which I really hate, a few other movies, so he has had other roles, Doolittle, other than Iron Man, but it feels like he hasn't really flexed his acting muscles as much as he does here in a long time.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair to say.
And that I like those sequences, and I think it does add quite a bit to the story. I know I've certainly seen people say that they like that last like 45 minutes, hour of Oppenheimer the most, and they just like how it turns into that like almost like courtroom drama, self-deprecatingness as Oppenheimer wrestles with keeping his name in check.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned that like Nolan uses all his tricks in his books, and certainly without sharing any particular sequence, it certainly feels like a very harkening back to like The Prestige, right? Like, well, we're going to show you something, but you don't know that it's going to be important till later.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. So, what else on Oppenheimer? Anything?
I really enjoyed it, John. Like you, I really love Interstellar, and like I think like I was kind of muted when I first saw it, and like I don't know if it was the effect of like what I was expecting, but over the years I've just really loved it. I told Charlie how much you and I enjoy Interstellar, and how like I could just like I think it's an infinitely watchable movie. Like I could just like turn it on and like sit down and watch the whole thing. I don't care how long it is. I think it's like terrifically paced and has a really neat story. The sequences that I really enjoy. But yeah, this one is a big picture for Nolan. Not only does it like make me excited for his work in a way that maybe I lost track of.
Yeah,
but
I feel similarly.
But it's a certain type of movie that like it seems like a miracle that is made these days. I mean, like I think I saw some thoughts from like Oliver Stone, and he's like, "Oh, I can't believe that Christopher Nolan was able to make a movie like this in this day and age, like this really like $100 million biopic, of the father of the atomic bomb." It's like this is not a movie that like on paper sells tickets, and I told people about it. It's like even like I had a box office competition with Shannon, right, John? I think I talked to you
Yeah,
about it.
you
She
did.
said that Barbie was going to do 3 times the domestic box office as Oppenheimer, and whether it's because of the meme or what have you, Oppenheimer is almost 50% of Barbie. It's not a third by any means. Oppenheimer's been making good money for a 3-hour R-rated biopic.
Yeah, totally.
I saw one of the funniest things, John. I shared it on my newsletter, but I wanted to share it with you to see how funny you think it is.
Okay.
Like they say, like Oppenheimer at the time of the article was the highest grossing biopic of all time, behind only the guy from American Sniper and Jesus Christ from Passion of the Christ.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And it was just hilarious, and I'm just like, wait, we're considering like Jesus Christ like a biopic, or like it's like I know there's a lot of people who believe like his story is 100% real and what have you, but just to say, yep, Jesus Christ biopic. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. It's funny you say that because like I wrote a piece for biography.com, which hasn't gone live yet, but it should be live soon, of like the 15 best biopics of all time. And I had such a hard time like trying to figure out like what actually is a biopic and what's not. Like I was thinking of like The Social Network, and is that technically one? Does that qualify? And like for me, it was not, because it's more about like the story of Facebook, but like it chronicles historical people. Like what's the line between? There's a lot of people who were like writing up. I was referencing other articles, and The Wolf of Wall Street gets brought up a lot, and I'm like, that to me is just like an adaptation of a book that's about somebody's life. That's not necessarily a biopic. Like it's not I don't know who he is. Like I don't know. I think there's like a fine line, and I guess that's the same thing. Like obviously, like he's a historical figure. We know he like
Steve
existed.
Jobs biopic.
I've included that on my list. To me, it was like unequivocally that was like about his life. Obviously the title, but like it's there is no movie without him, and
it doesn't follow
really,
here he was as a kid, and here he is like doing this, and like in his garage, and like some biopics have.
Oh well, I mean, none of those movies made my list because they suck. Like if you're a good biopic, it's because you eschewed that formula and you didn't do the boring like, oh, I was born on 1857. So yeah, I don't know. Passion of the Christ is kind of an interesting choice. Like I think it's more of an adaptation of a section of the Bible than it is a traditional biopic, but that section of the Bible is about a historical person's life. So I don't really know, but that's interesting.
Right.
I guess we need a clearer definition on this, or some sort of like board to judge what is what.
Sure, and then as a Jewish person, how much of that part of the Bible is copacetic? So.
Oh well, that's fair too.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why I thought it was funny. But no, I really dig Oppenheimer. I'm excited to watch it again. I one of the things that was like a really weird coincidence, John, when I was watching the movie, is like when the bomb went off and like the silence, and then like when you actually hear it, my watch like pinged me about something at that same instant that the bomb sound come off. I was like, oh shit! It's like I could not have like planned that.
That's funny.
So that kind of shocked me.
Cool. Yeah, no, good stuff. It was a good movie. Now Barbie, obviously has made a zillion more dollars, as good as Oppenheimer's done. And for me, it was, I really enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it on the same level that I enjoyed Oppenheimer. It's kind of funny because, like, I think I knew going in that, like, Oppenheimer had, like, it had a higher potential to be, like, outstanding, which I think it is. And it also had a higher potential to kind of, like, not be something I enjoyed. Barbie just felt like much of a safer bet that I was like, there's almost no way I'm not going to enjoy this movie, even if, like, it's probably not going to, like, end up at the top of my favorite movies of the year list under any circumstances. So I don't know. I'm not really sure.
How many movies have you seen? I mean, it's
well, 3, but I'm just saying,
right?
like, yeah, right. Like, I will have seen a lot more by the time we get around to that.
No, you've had to have seen documentaries at home, right? Or like other movies, like on like the streaming services or what have you.
Yeah, I think I have, but like honestly, couldn't even tell you. Like, I don't remember anything else that I saw, and I've kind of stopped keeping track in a way that is going to bite me in the ass when it comes to.
Have you not watched Air yet?
No, I almost started it today, but
okay.
I watched something else instead, which I'm not going to say out loud.
It's okay that you watched repeats of The Bachelor, John. It's fine.
It's like not that far off. But yeah, so it's like I went into Barbie like, no, I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm definitely gonna like enjoy this. I've like obviously been a big Greta Gerwig fan so far in her filmmaking career, but it's just like I instantly knew that it was just something that was going to kind of be up my alley. It's just the tone and the visuals and everything else. And in that respect, it didn't disappoint at all. Like, I was laughing pretty much throughout. I've told everybody who I've talked to about this movie that, like, the moment when they have Ken singing the Matchbox 20 song on the beach, and then it like pans out and they're all singing the same song, I was like crying. I was laughing so hard. And especially with like the way he was kind of doing the Rob Thomas voice, just like was way too much for me. It was so funny. That was probably my favorite moment of the movie, but like there's a lot that just are really, really funny stuff. And I appreciated just like the message and, the cast and everything that like she did to make this movie feel relevant and worthwhile, and not just kind of like a silly branding cash grab. So like I enjoyed it. Like, I didn't really have any major complaints. Like, to me, it just doesn't live up to Oppenheimer because it's not shooting so high, but I don't think it's like a bad movie by any stretch for having slightly more modest ambitions, I guess, even though like I still feel like it has pretty high ambitions, relatively speaking, when we look at the rest of the movies that came out this summer.
Really enjoyed Barbie too. I think it exceeded my expectations. When I saw when I was seeing the trailers and everything, I thought for sure it was going to be like a carbon copy of the Lego movie, especially because Will Ferrell was like in this like this role as like the head honcho of the
authority
business. Yeah. And like luckily like he's barely in the picture.
Yeah, it's really not like the same part that I thought was gonna be different also.
And I like I thought very much like once they had like their first 15 minutes at Barbie Land that they were going to spend the rest of the movie in the real world. I was happily missed that one too.
Yeah.
Because they end up spending a lot of time in the Barbie world, and yeah, you could see a lot of the influences that Greta Gerwig used on this film. I was certainly pointing out like things that I saw right away, whether it be like Monty Python, The Holy Grail, or like she said in Letterboxd, she was really influenced by a lot of Jacques Tati films and
I saw
Jacques Demy.
Yeah,
Jacques Demy and Jacques Tati.
Okay.
Like Playtime with the
houses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also Singing in the Rain, certainly with the Ken's big musical number, and the dreamlike stages of the stairs. That's very similar to a Gene Kelly sequence during the Broadway melody scene and Singing in the Rain. So it's obvious like where she got a lot of her influences from, and they're great influences. It's probably my favorite Greta Gerwig film, easily.
Wow.
I never really liked Lady Bird.
Yeah, it's probably my least favorite, but I still liked it.
And like Little Women, I really appreciated because like I liked what she did with the material, like something that is so well known that she tried to mix it up. And funny enough, that made like people who saw the movie be like, "Ew, this isn't the Little Woman that I grew up with." It's like, no, she tried to do something different.
Yeah. Anybody else have the same thing to say about Barbie?
Yeah. But like, for everything that I love about Barbie, and there's a lot that I love about it, it is at the end of the day ultimately like a selling toy movie, right? Because you can pretend like, oh, they're making fun of all the Barbie stuff that like didn't work or got canceled, or like, really hurt Mattel's bottom line at the time, and like Mattel can kind of like chuckle at that, like, ha, look at what we did.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately what the most impressive thing is that like it seems like Mattel and Greta Gerwig did not make this live action Barbie movie for the people who are playing with Barbies now. My daughter cannot see this movie. It would go right over her head. As a matter of fact, like I thought like anyone under 10 would probably not really super enjoy this. I saw some kids in my screening who were like kind of running around the theater. They weren't really into the movie.
That would drive me insane.
Yeah, they weren't into the movie at all. So it's just like, I think this is more for people who grew up playing with Barbies and maybe like reminiscing on their kids playing with Barbies.
Yeah.
And in that way, it has a really strong connection. You mentioned one of your favorite scenes. I know Shannon and I really loved the Depression Barbie like commercial segment, which I won't go into too many details because it's very hilarious, and there's an element of it that just like is my wife to a T. She's like, that's me. She's like, I feel so seen, yeah, we just really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing that again. I mean, it's no surprising that both movies are doing really big business, not only from people wanting to see what the commotion is and why both movies are so good, but also because like people want to go see them again. I've already had my ticket for Oppenheimer because I have to get into the showing that why it's still an IMAX. But like Barbie, I imagine we'll be playing through all the way to like middle of October, I guess.
Yeah.
The movie's doing excellent business. I guess its second weekend was like almost 95 million, which is unheard of for a second weekend. And yeah, people love it.
Yeah, no, they do. Everybody, it just has become a thing that everybody feels like they, I think, need to see and have a, conversation and opinion about, which, the opinion side, maybe not so great, but partaking in conversation is good. And seeing this movie, I think, is hopefully ends up being more good than bad. I did see a really funny meme, which was like, there was a thing about like, oh, these are all the like, oh no, you know what it was there was apparently like a report that like Mattel wants to have a Mattel cinematic universe. So like all the toy movies take place in the same world or whatever. And somebody tweeted just like, oh, Greta Gerwig after she sees this, and it was a picture of Cillian Murphy and Oppenheimer with his like hands over his head, like, what did I do?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. It could end up being that way, but ultimately it'll be all right. And I am like, before this I was kind of bummed out when I found this out, but like Greta Gerwig's next project that she has in development is like she's going to do 2 Narnia movies for Netflix. And I was kind of like, oh, that kind of sucks, but having seen like the right wing reaction of Barbie, I'm like extra excited about this because they like hold up C.S. Lewis like he is Jesus Christ as well. And I'm just I think that they're probably not going to be happy with whatever she does, and that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
um,
But kudos to her.
no, it's amazing.
The Barbie's already the highest grossing film directed by a female worldwide, beating Wonder Woman's total, and already like 2.5, 3 weeks. So crazy numbers Barbie's doing. It's definitely a social phenomenon. There will definitely be a Barbie 2. I don't know who will be involved or what it will be, but certainly Mattel and Warner Brothers would like to repeat this work. I just don't know how they're going to. And like I say, most of the time when there's sequels needing to be made of movies that I like, I'm glad that I don't have that job.
Yeah. No, I hear you. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Cool.
I bought a I'm Ken Enough sweatshirt.
Aw, that's nice.
For me, not for Shannon.
Obviously, yeah.
Yes. It might be my Halloween costume, John. I think that would be...
I'm sure that you're going to be the only one that's doing that.
The only one.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's going to kind of wrap up our conversation, since what we've been watching ended up being most of our main feature.
Well,
but...
I have one film in there. So
okay, well, real quick then, I'll do our outro and then you can do that. But you can follow us on Twitter. Our podcast is at It's the Pick Pod, and Max, you're at
MH Colville, not only on X but also on Blue Sky.
Okay, good.
So...
That's good. I God bless this outro, because it was very much made for like a 2019 world. And I've said it 155 times, and I don't know how easily I'm going to change it. But
do you have a Hive, John? Do you have a Post.news? Do you have
don't even? You're not even saying English words.
A Mastodon account?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
A Threads account? You gotta know Threads.
No, I don't. I know what that is, but I do not have an account. No.
Okay.
But yeah. So there's all that stuff that's happening out there in the internet. You can send us an email at itsthepictures@gmail.com. That still exists, right?
Yeah, that's still
email is good. Email is a medium that humans still use. But let us know your thoughts on Barbenheimer. Whatever some other summer movies that we talked about. You can also follow us on Letterboxd at It's the Pictures and see what we've been watching and listing. You can also check out the newsletter at itsthepictures.substack.com. What have you? I mean, I'm sure you've written a lot about these two movies, but anything else interesting lately?
Not too much recently. I did do a review on RogerEbert.com for the new season of Good Omens that just premiered.
Okay.
I saw 5 of the 6 episodes, and apparently the 6th episode is very controversial.
Ooh.
I haven't seen it yet, but
okay.
Apparently fans are kind of upset about it.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know what that is, but I trust that it's...
Do you know what Good Omens is?
No.
It's a David Tennant, Martin Sheen fantasy show on Amazon.
Okay.
And it was based on a book written by the fantasy author Neil Gaiman.
Oh, I've heard that guy before.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or any other podcatching app. While you're there, please leave us a review. It'll help other people discover and enjoy the show. So you said you had something else that you have watched and wanted to mention. What would that be?
Yeah, so I was given a screener for the new movie Passages from director Ira Sachs, and this movie premiered at the Sundance Film Festival. It got pretty good reviews, so I was interested in seeing it. And unfortunately for Mubi, the film was slapped with an NC-17 rating. It was mostly slapped with that rating because it features 2 men having sex at one point in the movie. There's been an outcry like, oh, if this was a heterosexual relationship, and just an outcry over the MPAA's rules regarding ratings, and certainly that's a conversation for another time, or one that I'm sure we've had on an earlier podcast. But I definitely think it was unwarranted NC-17 rating, and the film's pretty damn good. It's about a relationship between mostly three individuals, one played by Franz Rogowski, another one played by Paddington himself, Ben Winshaw, and another one played by Blue is the Warmest Color co-star Adele Excropoulos. So I tried. I probably slaughtered that one.
Yeah.
But the movie is about a gay couple. The characters played by Franz and Ben, respectively. Their marriage is kind of thrown into a crisis when one of them begins an affair with Adele's character, and it's just like the relationship drama is so important in this film, and so is the sex, that like by censoring any of it kind of would make the film broken. So I think that it was very important to have, and I think that all three of them are great in this movie. But I haven't seen the actor Franz Rogowski in anything else before. I looked him up afterwards. I'm like, what has he been in that I haven't seen him? Because he was absolutely excellent in this. And like, I guess he was in Terrence Malick movie A Hidden Life, which I never saw. He was in Transit and Undine by the director of Phoenix.
Yeah.
I haven't seen those. Yeah, he was excellent in this, and regardless of the rating, like I guess since Mubi has the rights to this will definitely be on digital through them eventually, as similar to like how Decision to Leave was when they had that last year. It's worth checking out. It's a pretty good movie.
Cool. That sounds interesting. I did see. I'm sure I've seen him before because I did see A Hidden Life and I saw Undine, but I can't picture him. So
yeah,
but no, it sounds like an interesting movie. So something to keep in mind as I try to add to my total of 3. Yeah, cool. So I think that's going to do it. Unless you have anything else.
No, I think that's gonna wrap it up, John. I think next time we'll do our fall preview, as I've booked my tickets to Canada.
Oh, beautiful!
To attend TIFF this year. So
cool. Well, yeah, let's definitely pencil that in, and we'll look forward to hearing about some of the fall stuff. I mean, I know we joked a lot about how like I haven't seen any movies, and that's not untrue, but my list of things I want to see that's coming out this fall is long. So I'm really excited about what's coming this fall.
All right.
Cool. Well, that's a little teaser. So we'll talk to you again soon, and thank you for listening.
All right. Bye.
Bye.